Welcome to Between Whistles. I'm Joe,
I'm Cindy.
and today we are live in location somewhere where you're.
Joe is accommodating my schedule today because it is election season and that's what I do for my regular gigs. So,
We are recording live at the
We are-
township offices.
yes, we are. We are live on location where Cindy and the other animals live and breathe here in the political world.
It's not fun to be around, let me tell you.
It's
Anyways.
lots of fun. But you know what's more fun is what we're going to talk about today, because this is really an exciting, dynamic development.
It is, because the Big Ten Conference could add USC and UCLA. Now you ask me, why does this matter? Because this is what it does matter. The Big Ten they'll take over the New York market, DC market, the Detroit market, the Chicago market, and now the LA market. Those are like some of the biggest TV markets in the entire country. But you add USC, who is on their way up with Lincoln Riley. You add UCLA, who's their basketball program, their baseball program are as storied as anybody. It's a huge get for the Big Ten Conference.
Well, and anytime you add Hollywood to the mix, you're going to have some more interest. But what I think is going to happen with this is that, there was a concern with the NIL discussions earlier in the year about how college sports are losing some of their authenticity because they're just basically becoming, minor pros. I mean, they're basically becoming like another NFL. We did a comparison between the fact that college football and the NFL, those programs versus those teams, they bring in darn near the same amount of money at the end of the day. So when we're talking about dollars and cents here, and this is a business, it is the sports business.
Yeah, it's business.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why they get involved. What you're looking at is you're looking at two very similar situations. So that comes in a discussion with a lot of this NIL stuff and some other things that we've had. I think this move, if it happens, trends it even more that way. I think it's going to probably take a little more away from the authentic college sport experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to basically make them like another pro league.
Yeah, you're definitely going to need the restrictions of you're going to need a revamp of what NIL actually is, so people don't get confused. Because if USC is out paying people, not a good sign, because they have a lot of money at their disposal. They're like the Texas A&Ms, where they have Texas schools have oil money. You have schools in the East, which they don't care about football, that are, some higher priced institutions in the world. But, that's the way it is. And if you had a USC and you had a UCLA, I mean, you have changed the dynamic of everything, because
That's right.
Because all those teams that are in that conference are going to get the money that comes from the TV deal. And that's good for the whole Big Ten Conference, because they're all going to get more money. And that you can imagine that every school at least get $100 million, maybe even $200 million.
I mean, and that's really what this is all about when you talk about the media contracts that these programs are going to get. You're talking about, that's the name of the game. I mean, that's the name of the game for pro sports anyway, because the reality is if they don't have those broadcasting contracts, that's the bulk of their money right there. So that's really what took sports anyway. When those contracts started coming into play decades ago, that's what took professional sports from the small potatoes that it was, where it was kind of accessible, to now an elite, high level, high finance institution here. And the college programs are now coming along with it. It's all about the money. It's all about those media deals, because that's where the lion's share of that is.
Yeah, and I like this tweet. It's by David Hokelstad. And he says it's impossible to overstate how USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten will change college sports forever. From a financial standpoint, the Big Ten will be untouchable. The conference will own the 4 biggest TV markets in the country, and you're looking at billions in annual revenue in TV.
And now, how does it change the competitiveness of the Big Ten too? Because now, once you bring those two programs
that's what we
into the fold,
that's what we haven't talked about. So this, from a competitive standpoint, you put these teams in the West. The West is usually the little sisters of the South. They're not that great. Every program in that is just like hunky dory. You got the Iowas, the Nebraskas, the Minnesotas, the Wisconsins. It's not like the East, where you got Ohio State, you have Michigan, you have Michigan State, Yeah, Penn State.
All the big boys.
Those
Yeah.
are those are four big schools that play each other consistently. You put USC in there. USC is on the rise with Lincoln Riley as their head coach. You put UCLA in there. Those are two hotbed schools who they literally don't have to go 100 miles outside of their recruiting area.
Yeah.
Because California is such a rich football state. Like a lot of talent comes from California. Your boy Tom Brady came from California.
My man.
There's a lot of players who come from California. It's one of the biggest high school football states in the country. So if you're a USC coach, you literally don't have to leave your area because all the talent is right around you. And that's the thing. Like USC was falling behind because for years they were trying to get back into the whole USC premier days, because they were seeing all these kids like Bryce Young, like other players, leave and go to Alabama, and they were leaving the state and not staying in USC or UCLA. When you brought Lincoln Riley in, that was it.
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer. So when you're in the Big Ten, that's even more of a game changer because you're going to be playing with probably 4 or 5 when you add USC and UCLA. You're putting 7 premier brands in football. 8 probably because you got to add Wisconsin because their football is good too. But I mean, like Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, UCLA, Wisconsin. Everyone has a football brand name to them. Everyone has a history of like good excellence. Like Michigan State had it in the '60s, and they were the main proprietor of bringing. They brought in. They were the first school to bring in black players to play. Then you have Michigan, which is a premier brand. You have Michigan. You have Ohio State, that's a premier brand. Because they've always been, because they win all time. And then you have Penn State, which is they're a historical school because of what comes along with them.
Of course.
And then you got USC and UCLA. Those are two big, huge. And then you know where UCLA plays, right?
Right.
The Rose Bowl.
Yep.
So this is a big day for Big Ten football.
Oh, it's huge because it changes the dynamics of college athletics in general.
Mm-hmm.
It changes the competitive nature of the conferences. It changes the direction of where the talent goes or where the talent doesn't go now. So now you may see more and more national championships shifting to the West Coast as opposed to staying over here in the East where they have, because you're going to have shakeups in all of these different dynamics. And I think it could basically change the complexion of college football in so many ways.
What did it in is when the Big 12 lost Texas and Oklahoma, they went to SEC. The Big Ten had to act because Big Ten was like, listen, we got premier brands in football. We got to stay competitive with SEC.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. It's nothing more than, we're gonna take the SEC over. We're gonna try to, get with them, and you can see it with these college football programs like Michigan, like Michigan State, like Ohio State. They're all trying to compete with the SEC. Every little poke and prod, and that's exactly what USC and UCLA see.
And they see opportunity. That's the bottom line, is that they see opportunity. I think it could be a win-win, but I think it's definitely going to make the entire college football outlook change dramatically.
It's going to change it dramatically.
Absolutely.
The conferences are probably there's going to be power conferences. And what it's going to really do is it's going to take the lesser conferences and make them they're not going to be nothing. Like Big 12 probably be gone. Your Pac-12 would probably be gone. ACC will probably stay because they have some firepower in ACC, but they haven't been adding teams to it. But you can see the Big Ten go and say, listen, West Virginia, do you want to come? Colorado, do you want to come? Maybe like the Utah, do you want to come? Oregon, do you want to come? They're in Oregon. I mean, you're adding the biggest markets in football. And the Big Ten looks at it like this. It's all about the money.
Absolutely.
It's all about the money because
if
you're a Big Ten school, you're like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Well, and the thing is that these programs are starving for funding as it is, and they're having trouble recruiting
these athletic
students. They need the money.
These athletic departments are struggling with money.
Absolutely.
You add in a $300 million surplus.
That's a huge incentive.
That's a huge incentive because Michigan State they got rid of swimming because they couldn't afford it. Well, now you can bring swimming back because you're going to have the money to do that and more. This is what this whole thing does, and it's a bigger thing than people think because if you look at the way it was done, look at the market it hits, the LA market, which is a huge, huge, huge market.
Sure.
I mean, the Big Ten really just changed college football forever.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see what it looks like here when the season starts.
That's what I'm talking about. They'll join the Big Ten in 2024, they say. But that's good because that's when they don't have to pay the money to get them out of the Pac-12.
But I think what you're going to see in this upcoming season, you're going to see people prepping for that, and you're going to see a lot of preemptive strikes in anticipation of that happening. So it's going to be awesome to watch.
We will see you in the next segment as we talk Red Wings.